Hi everyone, welcome to our discussion today on filing taxes. Today you'll be able to describe what a Form 1040 is for, Form W-2 is for, how to use those to do what's called filing your taxes. Let's get started. All right, so the first question is why do we file taxes, and what is this filing taxes thing really all about? Every paycheck, your employer takes out an estimated amount of taxes from your paycheck. This is called a deduction. Now, I know that word deduction, we use it for tax deduction. And then when we say deduction for taking money out of your paycheck, those are two separate things using the same word. I know, very confusing, but make sure to keep those straight in your head. This amount is an estimate based on how much taxes they think you're going to owe at the end of the year. This monthly pool of taxes provides the government with a steady stream of money to fund itself. So every month your employer sends that money to the federal government for you. However, your employer is not aware of all the details of your tax situation: the number of children, spouse's income, number of deductions you have, type of deductions. All those things will affect how much tax you actually owe. This means that the estimated tax that your employer is sending in is never quite right. Sometimes they send in a little too much, sometimes not quite enough. So at the beginning of every year, you do what's called filing your taxes, or filing a tax return, are the two ways we call it. And what this means is you just basically calculate, based on all the information from last year, exactly how much you made, all your deductions, spouse, everything all included in there. You actually calculate how much exact tax you should have owed last year. And that whole process of doing that calculation is called filing a tax return or filing taxes. Now, if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this the rest of my life, don't worry. No one ever does the actual calculations like we've been doing so far. That's just to help you learn how the process works. You'll have an app or a computer do all the work for you. Even before computers, you did all the figuring out of how much income you had, and then you just looked up this big book of table of values. You would look up your income in there and go over and find the exact tax you should have paid. So no one's been doing these calculations ever. We do them just to help you learn how the process works. Awesome. All right, now tax refund and tax bills. There's two possibilities. Well, there's three, but one's not very likely. If after filing your taxes, so that means calculating that whole thing of what you owe, if your employer took out more taxes than what you actually owed, you'll get a check for the difference from the IRS. So you get all that money back, and it's called a tax refund. So if you ever heard somebody saying, oh, I got a tax refund, what that really means is they overpaid taxes all year and then got that money back. Basically, you're giving the federal government a low or no interest loan for a big part of the year. A tax refund, some people like them because they like that little burst of money there at the beginning of the year. But know that a tax refund isn't some kind of gift from the government. It is your money being returned to you because you overpaid taxes. Now, that may not always be true, actually. An earned income tax credit, if you get an earned income tax credit, that is money the government says, hey, we're going to just give you some extra money to fill in the gaps because you have a lower income and children to support. All right. Now, the other possibility is your employer deducted less than what you actually owed, right? So you didn't get taxed enough. That means you have to pay the difference. So when you file your taxes, you calculate, you're like, oh, I underpaid by $1,000. You have to write a $1,000 check to the government to pay your taxes for last year. Again, this isn't like some kind of punishment. It's just the fact that you didn't pay your fair share of taxes from the previous year, and you have to do that now. This is called getting a tax bill. The other possibility, I guess, is that the employer got lucky and took out the exact right amount and none of these occur for you. That doesn't usually happen. You either get a refund or a bill. If you do get a tax bill, you can actually fill out a form with your employer and ask them to take out more taxes than what they currently are so that next year you won't have that tax bill. My wife and I would prefer to have a small tax bill over a refund, but not everybody's in that same boat. We don't like to be surprised by a big bill at the end of the year, but we also don't want to have overpay taxes all year and get a big check either. Although, like I said before, some people really like getting a refund. All right, you must file your taxes by April 15th each year. So you have, that first part of the year to get all the forms and do all the calculations. Again, you won't be calculating anything. You'll be putting stuff into a program which will calculate it for you. All right, you're going to use software or an app to electronically file your taxes. It used to be you'd fill out paperwork and send it in. That just does not happen anymore. You'll scan all your documents and send it electronically. All right, tax forms. This is where it gets really exciting. At the beginning of the year, you're going to receive a bunch of tax forms from a bunch of different places. The most important one is this one. It's called the W-2. You'll hear that like every adult. If you say W-2 to an adult, every adult knows what a W-2 is. It's weird, but it's true. Try it in your life. This lists your overall income and how much taxes you paid. So here you see that there's some employer information here, and this is prepared by your employer and sent to you, either in paper or electronically. This shows your total wages you made. So this person made $2,323 last year, and the amount of federal income tax you paid. It also shows your similar income here for Social Security that was taxed for Social Security and Medicare. We'll talk about those two in the next objective. And then this is how much taxes you paid for Social Security and Medicare taxes. These taxes you don't get back. So you don't get a refund on these. These are going in to pay for benefits later. More on that in the future. Over here, 12, these numbers are typically things like maybe they're union dues, retirement accounts, healthcare benefits. There's a series of different things you might have numbers in box 12 over. Don't worry about exactly what those are yet. When you go to file your taxes, the app will ask you, hey, do you have any money in box 12A? And you'll say yes, and they'll say, what's the code? You'll say the code was A and the amount was 220, and the software will know how to use that based on that A code and the amount, how to help you figure taxes that way. All right, so that's box 12. There's some other boxes in here for whether you have a retirement plan. Some of these things will or will not be checked. Again, your tax software will ask you, hey, which boxes in 13 are checked, which aren't. The final part you won't have as a citizen of Washington State. This is your state income tax that was withheld. So this was the amount of money your employer sent to the state on your behalf. We don't have income tax in Washington State, so you don't have to file your taxes with Washington State. All right, the next one is Form 1098. This is a mortgage interest statement form. So once you buy a house, you can actually deduct the interest you pay each year from your taxes. So your bank will send you this form, and it'll just list basically exactly how much money you spent in paying interest that year, and you can use that if you want to itemize your deductions. If you use a standard deduction, this form isn't useful to you. The next one is Form 1099 INT. This is a really common one as well. This lists all the interest you earn on savings and checkings account. Now, unless you have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in a savings account, this amount's going to be really small, but you'll still get one from your bank saying, hey, you earned so much interest. Technically, that interest is income that you haven't paid taxes on yet. So when you enter in, hey, I made $1.35 in interest, that's going to be added to your taxable income, and you have to pay 15 cents of tax on that. So one thing to keep track of. And then the other big one is 1098E. So if you go to college and you take out college loans, you can actually deduct the interest you pay on those college loans each year. So whoever the bank has your college loan, you borrow the money from, they'll send you this form, and it will just list, hey, you paid $3,000 of interest this year, and you can just deduct that if you do itemized deductions. Again, if you take the standard deduction, this form won't be useful to you. There are so many other forms. I'm not going to try to make you memorize them. The whole process can sometimes be mind-numbing. Again, you've got apps and software, and you can also hire an accountant to help you through this. You can pay a few $100s, and they will take all your forms and file your taxes for you. Super awesome. All right. Although, for the most part, when you're young, your taxes will be pretty straightforward. I think you'll find the process pretty darn easy. All right, now this is the form that you use for actually filing your taxes. And you can see up at the top here, it has tons of like information about you, social security number, all this stuff, address. This next part is your filing status. We've talked about these five filing status things. You'll choose probably either single or married filing jointly. And then there's some other questions in here. This is some cryptocurrency stuff, which is really new on tax forms. This wasn't there when I was this digital assets things. And then whether you're taking the standard deduction or not is in this area. So whether you're going to itemize or take the standard. Your dependents, so how many people depend on you for their financial well-being. These are mostly kids, but they can also be adults as well. And then here's where you're doing all those calculations based on the boxes from your W-2. So you can see here, this one says the total amount of W-2, box 1, you put that there. And then you do Form W-2, the household employee wages not reported on Form W-2. You go through each of these steps. I'll give you an opportunity to kind of go through that with a W-2 and see what the process feels like. All right. Pretty much no one uses this paper form anymore, but as you go through this form when you're practicing, you'll start recognizing all the questions that your app is asking you. Basically, it's asking you all these questions so they can figure out what's the best approach for you. All right, my friends, that does it for our discussion today. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it made it a little more clear what the process is and why we have to file our taxes. Have a great day.